I've lost my agenda. I think I don't know. No, because this is hooked up here. Okay. Yeah, I think I will need that. I will need that when we swear in the captain. Yeah. Yes, that'd be great. Thank you. Are we ready? You ready, North? Okay. Wrong spot. I'd like to call the Monday, February 7, 2022 Oakwood City Council meeting to order. Would you please rise and join me with the pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. May I have a roll call, please, Lori?
Mayor Duncan?
Here.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Here.
Mr. Stevens?
Here.
Mrs. Hilton?
Here.
Mrs. Turbin?
Here.
And may I have a report on our minutes of our our January 3rd regular session, work session, and executive session, and our January 24 work session. Councilmember Hilton.
Yes, Your Honor. I reviewed the minutes for all of those meetings, and I found them to be correct and complete, and therefore I move that they be adopted as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So ordered. Tonight is the night I get to give the State of the City address. And I'm excited for all of you people that have to listen to me give it. Members of City Council, honored guests, city staff, and citizens of Oakwood. Last March, Niche Magazine recognized Oakwood as the best place to live in Ohio out of 728 communities, ranked based on overall livability of an area. They considered factors which include cost of living, education, home values, crime rates, diversity, walkability, and health and wellness. The Ohio State Senate issued a proclamation commending our city for this ranking, noting the city of Oakwood has gained a reputation as an amicable and pleasant community, offering wonderful places to live and explore, and has flourished in its efforts to achieve great progress. As a result, the city and all those who reside within it are afforded the opportunity to reflect on the accomplishments of the past and look forward to a future filled with promise. Accordingly, and on behalf of Oakwood City Council, it is my honor to proclaim that Oakwood, with its newly counted population of 9,572 residents, continues to be the premier residential community, not only in the Dayton region, but in the entire state of Ohio. We have this distinction because of our beautiful neighborhoods, our excellent public schools and library, unmatched city services, including public safety, public works, recreation, and leisure, and most of all, because of our citizens. The primary purpose of local government is to provide for public safety, refuse services, water and sewer services, and other governmental and infrastructure services. We also have the obligation to create a community ambiance that encourages citizens to want to live in our fine community. As our city manager reported in his budget message to City Council in December, we have the safest community in the region with very low crime and very low fire loss. We have an extremely fast police and fire response time, and we answer every call with highly trained professionals. We always have qualified paramedics and EMTs on duty to respond to medical emergencies. On average, medical help arrives in less than 2 minutes, unparalleled in the area. We have well-maintained streets, sidewalks, public trees, and landscaped boulevards. Although most of our housing stock is over 75 years old, our citizens maintain their homes and properties in very good condition, and our home values prove it. Our city parks, public pool, community center, and public natural areas are wonderful community assets. Our overall community ambiance is second to none. Community ambiance is the character and atmosphere of a place. All our traditions and community events have been affected by the pandemic. Nonetheless, just consider some of the following events that occurred in our city in 2021. In March, 160,000 daffodils were in full bloom on Ridgeway Road in a stunning display of beauty. That day in May, organized by the Oakwood Rotary Club, returned with a virtual 5K and 10K run and a dog show costume contest at Mack Humman Field. Wright Memorial Public Library raised over $1.5 million of private contributions for its capital campaign. The Oakwood Academic Decathlon team won its 9th consecutive Division III national championship. Whether in person or virtually, our students keep winning. Congratulations yet again. In May, a new tradition which began in 2020, we celebrated the Oakwood High School graduating class of 2021 with a community parade through the city, along with pictures of all the seniors on Schaefer Boulevard. The Oakwood High School girls track and field team won its first ever Division II state championship in June. Congratulations, ladies. For 22 years, Giving Strings Orchestra performed a summer concert with the proceeds this year benefiting Hannah's Treasure Chest. We continued traditional city-sponsored events, the Ice Cream Social, the Family Fall Festival, and Holiday of Lights. Oakwood City Council added an Oakwood moment to our monthly agenda and recognized the following moments: Smith, Loy, and Francine's Gardens, a neighborhood band known as 6 Feet Apart, the Oakwood High School Marching Band at the Farm, a block party on Volusia Avenue, American flags prominently displayed on Far Hills Avenue, Schaefer Boulevard, and selected residential streets. The 3rd annual Holiday Home Tour conducted by the Oakwood Historical Society, and Santa Claus touring our city aboard Fire Engine number 26. Community ambiance indeed. Under the leadership of City Council, our outstanding city staff, and the advice and counsel of our 35-member Citizen Budget Review Committee, we met the challenges to our financial stability. Our revenues exceeded our expenses in 2021, and we anticipate this will also occur in 2022. This year, we plan no increase in income tax, property tax, or refuse water, sanitary sewer, or stormwater fees. In fact, our water rates are now the 2nd lowest of any jurisdiction in the region. We thank our citizens for their continued confidence in our city leaders as they passed our property tax renewal levy last November by a 76% to 24% margin. This levy provides about $468,000 annually for city services. And as you know, only 8% of your property taxes go for city services. The rest go to Oakwood schools, Montgomery County agencies, and Wright Library. As I begin my 19th year on Oakwood City Council and my 13th year as your mayor, I am also honored to serve with my fellow members of council. Steve Byington begins his 15th year as a member of Oakwood City Council and his 13th year as your vice mayor. I congratulate Lee Turbin on her election last year and look forward to serving with her as she begins her 2nd year on City Council. And I also congratulate Council members Rob Stevens and Ann Hilton on their re-elections last November as they both begin their 13th year on Oakwood City Council. This council, like those that preceded it, operates in a collegial style, and everyone believes in doing the right thing for the citizens of Oakwood. We listen to one another, no one has hidden agendas, and we believe in community service. When I joined Oakwood City Council in 2003, It was my belief that Oakwood was well-governed, well-managed, and financially strong. I still hold that belief and will continue this tradition. With the help of City Council, city staff, and the citizens of Oakwood, we will continue to be well-governed, well-managed, and financially strong. Thank you again for the opportunity to serve you. That concludes my report. Next on our agenda, we have, if I can find my agenda, here it is. We have a couple of, do I need to take this off? Perfect. Thank you. Next, we have 2 citizen committee appointments. We're wanting to reappoint Harrison Gowdy to our Planning Commission, and we want to appoint Jan Scheid to our Tax and Water and Sewer Appeals Board. With respect to Harrison Gowdy's reappointment, the Planning Commission had their first meeting last week on February 2nd. We knew it would be slightly out of sequence with tonight's council meeting, so my motion to appoint her would also, I would also like council to ratify her actions at our February 2 Planning Commission meeting, and I would ask for a second.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, and that concludes our citizen appointments. And now, for the most exciting part of the evening, it is, I am honored to give the oath of office to Lieutenant Tanner, who we are about to promote to Captain Tanner, and I will come down and say the oath of office to you. We have several special guests here with Mike. His wife Jessica is here, and he has 3 daughters. Ann is here. Where are you, Ann? Hiding back there. And there's 2 other daughters who are watching on Zoom. Did you know that? Okay. Kate and Megan, if you can see us, how are you? Good to see you. Mike's parents are also here. Bob and Shar, where are you? There you are. Okay. And there's Mike. Okay. And then Mike has his in-laws here, Raymond and Barb. Thank you. And then your parents, Eric and Louisa. And they're in the back. Great. So I'm going to come down, and you can have as many or as few of those folks to come up with you and join the festivities. Got it. Yeah. After I give Captain Tanner the oath, Chief Hill wants to say a few words about him, and I believe we're going to let you talk too, correct? Great. Okay. If you'd raise your right hand and repeat after me. I solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the State of Ohio, and will obey the laws thereof, and that I will, in all respects, uphold and enforce the provisions of the Charter and ordinances of this city, and will faithfully discharge the duties of public safety captain upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations.
These nights are special in our careers. So, I mean, these are memorable nights, and so many people showing up in the background. Greatly appreciate everybody coming out and celebrating Captain Tanner's promotion. Just a little bit about Mike. Captain Tanner began his career with the Oakwood Public Safety Department in March of 2000. For those of us that were here then, that's kind of debatable because he was here weekly in the years leading up to him getting hired here. Showed the most dedication we've ever seen, so it paid off. When he was hired as a public safety officer, he served in this capacity for several years, providing police, fire, and emergency medical services to our community. As a public safety officer, Mike truly embodied the motto, an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. Mike, year after year, was one of the most productive, if not the most productive officer on the department. Prior to coming to Oakwood, Mike served 13 years with with the Middletown Fire Department, working various assignments within the organization. In addition to being assigned to a firehouse as a firefighter paramedic, Mike sought out promotion within the firefighter rank, and in 1998 was promoted to the classification of emergency squadsman. Mike remained in this position throughout the remainder of his career in Middletown. Here in Oakwood, Mike was promoted to the rank of lieutenant in December 2017. Since that time, Mike has served as a crew supervisor on multiple shifts. Relying on his prior experience, Mike easily transitioned into this role and quickly became an effective supervisor. Mike will now serve as the operations captain, and his primary responsibilities is to provide general management, direction, and oversight to the operations division, along with daily supervision of all 3 crew lieutenants. Mike was raised in Germantown, is a graduate of Valley View High School. He earned a bachelor's degree in sports medicine from Wilmington College, and has attended numerous trainings. Outside of work, Mike is a dedicated husband to his wife Jessica and a father to his 3 daughters, Megan, Ann, and Kate. Captain Tanner's strong record of performance will make him an excellent addition to the Safety Department Command Leadership Team. Captain Tanner's promotion embodies the hard work, commitment, and dedication he has demonstrated throughout his career, so please join me again in congratulating Captain Mike Tanner on his promotion to the rank of captain.
I just wanted to recognize a few people tonight, please. First of all, my wife, Jessica. I love you. Thank you for your support. My daughters, Megan, Ann, and Kate. And my mom, Dad. I love you all. Bear with me just for a minute, if you would, please. Policing in the last several years has been very difficult. We're not just police officers, we're public safety officers. And what we've experienced the last 2 years has been very trying in our department. And I just want to recognize Chief Hill, Captain Przinski, Captain Jones, and Lieutenant Balaj. They led us through some of the darkest times any department's ever had to go through. And I hope nobody else ever has to go through what we went through. That being said, I think it's important to recognize every member of our department by name. And I'd like to do that starting off with the dispatchers. We have Pat Knight, Leslie Zingle, Cheryl Colton, and Jennifer Anderson, and Sarah Murphy. I'd also like to give a special thanks to Lieutenant Balaj because he was very instrumental in some of the things that we went through. I'd like to thank Lieutenant Benson, Lieutenant Baggett, Lieutenant Sloan. I appreciate you guys' support. I'd also like to mention each officer individually. I'm going off memory, so bear with me, guys. But first would be Brian Pond, Rob Wilson, Greg Ortell, my FTO and my mentor, Glenn Evans, Greg May, Jack Harrison, Steve Norris, Jeremy Smith, Sarah Whitaker, Jason Tipton, Jeff Yount Jr., Ryan Rump, Cameron McElroy, Jeff Payne, Jeff Watkins, Josh Wells, Casey Ballinger, Jesse Schaffer, God rest his soul, Ryan Wells, Chris Sloan, Kyle Seward, Ross Green, and Matt Staley. Without you guys, I wouldn't be here, so I appreciate it. I look forward to working with everybody in 2022. Thank you very much.
a finer group of public safety officers does not exist in this town. And, you know, a lot of the city folks, in addition to the PSOs, were there at Officer Shafter's funeral, and your eulogy for him was beyond compare. And I know it was very heartfelt. We appreciate it very much on behalf of the city and everybody that served with him. So, guys are great. And I don't know how many people on council, maybe you, Rob, could go through that list like he just did.
I've had interactions with all of them.
None resulted in your arrest.
They're all
correct?
positive experiences.
Positive
yes.
interactions, great.
2 or 3 warnings.
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, thank you very much. We have a special visitor here tonight, and I don't know, you don't want to sit here and listen to us join on, or? Oh, that's right, he gets to give a talk about public safety, so you guys could be there for, you know, point, counterpoint, or whatever. Okay, but thank you all for coming, for Captain Tanner, that was great. And the two of you on Zoom, thank you for attending as well, thank you for coming. So we do have a special guest here tonight to address the city and our citizens, and that is the new director of the Montgomery County Board of Elections, Jeff Rezebek. Welcome, Jeff. Come on down. Indeed.
I had to do that twice tonight.
Yeah.
In Washington Township, so.
Oh, okay.
So we had 2 new firefighters out there that they were taking care of. Well, with that, we'll go with the great and energetic news of elections. Let me introduce myself again. I'm Jeff Rezebek. Some of you may know me before. I was a state representative, got a lot of formers, state representative, as well as former juvenile court judge. I transitioned over to the Board of Elections in the last year. It's just about a year now. And so we have new leadership. One of your residents, Sarah Greathouse, is our deputy director. So you guys have an in already in that office, and she's wonderful to work with. The purpose of me coming out and visiting all these different communities is that we did some changes over the last 6 months. We've been working on redrawing precincts. But before I get into that, I'll just give you some breaking news that occurred as I was out at Washington Township and then driving here, trying to read on what it was. The latest maps for the redistricting in the state of Ohio, surprisingly, are declared unconstitutional again. So they are going to have another try at it. The Supreme Court has given them the opportunity to February 17th. With that, and I share that information, one is because what we did is we redrew all the precincts in Montgomery County. And the reason was simply is because we were out of whack. The last administration believed that we only had to do it every 10 years, which then meant part of your community was not being represented in the sense of our services, better services. By the state, you can only have 1,400 registered voters in each precinct. The prior administration basically set the precinct amount as active voters, okay? Which meant if you had voted in the last 2 consecutive elections, they would consider you an active voter. However, in 2016 and 2020, it found out that there are registered voters who don't vote in every election. And so what that meant is in 2016 and 2020, when they came out, a lot of the community had, a lot of our polling locations had long lines. And that's not good. And so what we did is we complied with the law, and we are now, in your community, one of the benefits of your community is we're adding an extra precinct. As you were, Mayor, as you were talking about how great your community is, it's also a growing community in certain areas. We had to create a whole new precinct. And what we wanted to do is get out to all the communities and all the cities and townships and express to you guys directly as representatives of your community that you're getting something new, a new precinct. But we're also asking you, by giving you that new precinct, we're asking for some help. We're also trying to redo our polling locations and finding appropriate locations. Some of our locations are small, and with the number of equipment that we can't have just one polling location precincts. They have to be multiple precinct locations. And so we're going to be asking you guys to help us identify in your community the larger facilities that we can use. It doesn't have to be basic large facility, but it also has to have accessible parking. And what we're going to do is try and work with you and your constituents to identify those. And we're in the process of doing that, so we'll be reaching out. It is important that we find those new locations, as it'll be easier for your constituents to come in and vote on Election Day. What's important also is that we want to engage you on a yearly basis, every other year, to make sure we're meeting the needs of your voters. If there's a polling location that's not working, or there's some other issue that rises up, we want to be very proactive. We're no longer going to wait for a problem to come to us. We're going to seek solutions prior to that problem and try and identify it. That's why we're going to be, one of the things with your new precinct is we're going to be monitoring that on a yearly basis in those growing areas to monitor, make sure that we don't reach that threshold of 1,400. We'll take care of it well before, so that we don't have this massive redistricting or re-precinct, as we're calling it, for our area, which then puts people at stress. What precinct am I in? Who am I voting for? Where do I vote? Those are the questions that you're going to get a lot of questions you're going to get from your constituents. We want to make sure you have those answers well in advance. One of the things that I started with at breaking news is that with the map being unconstitutional, we still can't advance in having the official locations for everybody. We kind of are now delayed even more. We have the precincts all done. We just can't go live in our system yet because it'll create a bigger problem. So I just want to give you that about our redistricting process, our polling locations. We're just trying to take care of the voters. I have provided each of you a packet. In that packet, you'll have voter registration forms, absentee ballot applications, a pamphlet about voting in Ohio easy as 1, 2, 3. Those are things that we can continuously provide to you guys on a regular basis, voter registration forms and the absentee ballot. And being mindful that we always encourage you guys to encourage the constituents to, if they want to vote on Election Day, great, we will have that. If they want to sit at their kitchen table and go through and evaluate every prospective candidate out there, you got your absentee ballot. Or if you want to come down and visit us early in the early voting time period down at the Board of Elections, we're more than we will get you through real quick. We've developed a new process for that right there, free parking for everybody that comes on down. I take care of that for everybody. There's also in that pamphlet something that's very dear to my heart that I want to make sure it's available to all your residents and you notify them. It's called the Safe at Home program. It's not utilized a lot in our county for some reason. It basically, if you have been a victim of domestic violence or other violence and you want your address protected, because our records are public records, your voting records. So if somebody calls me and they want Mayor Duncan's address and his voting record, I have to give it to them. It's a public record. But under this program, if you fill out a couple forms and you qualify because you have a protection order or something like that, we can remove you from that so no one can get that information. There's only 2 people in our office that know those individuals that are on that list. And we send out separately from any other mailing a ballot to them and making sure that they are able to vote. We would encourage you to, if you know individuals or your public safety department, if they know individuals, encourage them to sign up. We don't want to miss any voters because they've been a victim of domestic violence or other violence. We want to make sure they have the right to participate in our democracy as well. A couple of last minute notes and then I'm open to answer any questions. Voter registration deadline, we always want to get that out, is April 5th. Absentee ballots, if you've made that request, are available starting April 5th. If you want an application or mailing in an application for the absentee ballot, it has to be received in our office by noon on April 3rd. And for you guys, as elected officials, we're always concerned that you turn in your campaign financing forms. If you have that, there's the calendar in your thing. If you have any questions, We have a crack staff down there that can answer any campaign financing, and they do that on a regular basis. Or, and she'll probably kill me for this, call directly to Sarah. Sarah knows the EOM better than most of us, and she'll be able to assist you as much as possible. With that, I want to thank you again for your time this evening. We just wanted to get out to the communities to express many of the new things that we're doing, how we're approaching the Board of Elections differently. Also to tell you, I don't work 2 days a week or 2 days a year. Elections are more than that. We work 24/7 and the 365 because we're already working on November's election. You'll be surprised that we're doing that now. We're just doing a lot of different things to get ready for that. So with that, I will open it up for any questions if you wish. And other than that, thank you for your time this evening.
Questions for Mr. Rezabec?
I have a question.
Let Ann go first.
So Safe at Home, so who signs up for that? Is it like celebrities or?
No, you actually have to, if you've been a victim of domestic violence and you have a restraining order, there are a couple criteria,
Okay.
then you will qualify under that. And that is so somebody under any stalking orders, so that if somebody is stalking you and you don't want them to know where you live, we can then, you get in the program, your name is kind of withdrawn, okay? Now, if they knew you were going to do it and they capture something well in advance, we can't fix that. But any new addresses, if you're in the program, no one will know where you live. Additionally, I also, the way the program works is when we send it out, there is a secure location where you get your ballots. So everything is done so that your secrecy and your protection is foremost, as well as your right to participate in our democracy.
Oh, great answer. So are your board meetings public?
Yes, our board meetings are public. We have one coming up on February 14th. That one was originally scheduled at 8:30. We've moved it back to 1 o'clock simply because of the breaking news. We've got to do some other things for that, but they're all public. And I encourage people, we do, one of the things that we encouraged as I got in there for the November, we have, there are these public, what are called public testing. So our machines are available for you
Okay.
to come watch and how we do it. I actually, as an attorney, I actually have the fun of reading statutes and I'll follow the requirements. I'm a rules kind of guy. One of the things that we did is you're supposed to have this public test and make sure it's out. Well, we do have the public test, but the prior administration would put a little sign outside our door that said it. I instructed my staff, I wanted that in all our social media, everything. We invited the media to come on down to see the machine, see them in operation so they can trust what we do down there. And it was the first time we had all major media there. And the questions that they were asking were great questions. And we had a number of people from the general public just show up because of that push out to come and see our machines. And they had wonderful questions as well to demonstrate how we prepare our machines, do what we call LNA testing, making sure they're all set for our election and that we're doing everything correctly.
Oh, awesome.
And we did have 100% accuracy on our audits this past 2 elections. 100% accurate.
Pretty good. So we're going to have an Oakwood here. Is the next election in May? Is it
Currently, it's scheduled for May 3rd,
Okay.
yes.
So we're going to have some people who will be voting. Well, I don't know how that will change, but anyway, is it our responsibility, Oakwoods, to inform them of the new precincts?
No,
Or-
it ultimately is our responsibility, and what we were going to do, and we've been working with the county already, is we're required to notify if you have a new
Okay.
precinct, new polling location. We will send out postcards about 2 to 3 weeks prior
Okay,
to the
perfect.
election, but that's part of our outreach of me going out to all the jurisdictions.
Okay.
Is for you guys to help us and also to kind of say, hey, you guys are in the know. Let the constituents know as well, and we'll try and help you. We are going to have press conferences once these maps come out so that we can let everybody know that don't be shocked. And we're going to do a couple things, and this is from staff. The staff I have down there, unbelievable. Say Corey's name, but Corey came up at all our polling locations that we previously have. If we're not reusing them, we're putting out signs that says, hey, there's going to be a QR code. Do you know what the little square?
Yeah, yeah,
scan.
got it, yeah.
And on that QR code, if you scan that, it'll pull up our website right to put your name in. It'll tell you where you're going to vote. Instantly like that. So they've got the technology, so they're going to do that. We also encourage everybody to get on our website. Before you go out and vote, you put your name in. It'll actually give you a sample ballot once those are ready. So you already know what you're potentially voting on when you come down to the polls.
Perfect.
Or you can look at it.
So what happens if somebody shows up at the wrong location in Oakwood?
If they show up the wrong location, our poll workers and our PLS, our polling location supervisor, will work with that voter to make sure that they get to the new
Okay.
polling location, and we'll apologize to them. But part of our system, on our system, right there at the polling location, they'll scan your driver's license number. You'll tell them if they're in our system, it'll send them to the right polling location.
Got it. Okay.
Actually give them directions.
Okay, perfect. Do you encourage people to vote absentee?
I don't necessarily encourage one way or the other. I would encourage anybody. I'll say it this way. My first election was, we did well, but I was disappointed because the turnout in May was 8.2%.
8.2?
8.2%. Early voting we rounded up to 0.2%. And in those elections,
I'm going to guess that was during the pandemic.
that was in 2021, May of 2021.
Okay.
And you had a mayor's race in the city of Dayton as well as council seats. We were quite disappointed. And then in November, only 23%, that's a roundup,
Okay.
22.8% I think was the actual number, but 23% voted. We had 72, 74% in 2020. As I share with everybody, however you vote, whether you come down and vote early, you vote absentee, you vote on election day, come out and vote. And especially in those, most people, and here's the disappointing thing, is in the odd years, people call them the off years.
Yeah, I know.
That's the worst
we know.
term to use. It's the worst term to use because to your constituents, I always tell them, that is the most important year.
Yeah.
Why? They're closest to their government by working with you guys.
Yeah.
Voting for somebody way up and all that, yes, it's extremely important, but it doesn't have that direct impact. I always share with many of the communities when I was running for juvenile court judge. One of the things, I think that's one of the most important jobs. That affects your community on a daily basis and working with juveniles and families.
Yeah, we get that. All right, thank you very much for your answers.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stevens, you have a question?
Yeah, is your funding, your budget, is that straight from the county?
It is county funding. There are additional revenues that come from, I'll give you a little more breaking news, although it's rumors at this point. They wanted to split the primary into two separate primaries. We would not want that. And it would be the counties, and then you would have the congressional, because the congressional thing is quite different this year. It'd be difficult for our county to do three full county elections. But if that were to happen, the state usually would throw in additional money, but it's coming from the county.
But the majority of it, no matter what happens, is definitely from the county.
Correct.
Okay.
And your community as well, because if you have a non-countywide election, there's some levy that you guys want to put on or something like that, and it's not in a primary or in a general election, then that comes out of your funding.
Okay.
We
But so
charge backs.
it kind of goes hand in hand with my next question, and that's why I asked who funds you. By adding these precincts, I got to make the assumption, and feel free to tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, it's your job. Doesn't it add more machines, more people? I've always heard there's volunteer trouble. I get that you don't want long lines. I totally understand that. But I haven't heard of too many long lines in Oakwood. Now, I'll just throw Dayton out there because it's right next door. Dayton has long lines. I understand redistricting. But why would you add an eighth to Oakwood if there's not a lot of lines? And to look for more polling stations, which we already have trouble with because we don't have large facilities. I believe it's a fact, not a rumor, about how the machines are getting so large. There's some locations that can't handle them. And why haven't the machines gotten smaller with technology? That's another good question. You don't have to answer that one tonight, but
I can go into all of that. If
I
you
mean, my
like.
point is that I'm just curious as to why you would.
I don't think citizens want to
no,
sit
they
around
don't
for the
hear
next
that.
7 hours.
The last question: why would you create more precinct? You could do it in other districts where there's lines, but in Oakwood, if there's not a lot of lines, why are we creating another precinct / why not combine two that aren't crowded? I'm just asking, just,
Yeah.
you know.
No, to answer your question directly, we're required, the precincts can't have more than 1,400 voters. And so when we did the analysis, because they did active voters versus registered voters, I'm going to do it on registered voters because that's the potential that can be there. And
right.
so what happened is in 3 of your precincts, and what we had to do is break up the 3 precincts, 200 from here, 150 from here, 600 from here. And what we were trying to do is average right around 1,000 per precinct. Now, that goes into, well, we added a precinct. Well, yeah, but is there a way in which we can combine that precinct to go to one of the other polling locations?
Right, okay.
It would be easier for us to have different polling locations since a larger site, because several of the factors that you pointed out, the size of the machines. And I'll give you, again, not trying to pick on our prior administration, but they made some choices. And with the equipment that we have, spent millions of dollars on that equipment, and it is highly effective, it is great, but then they put them into what we call safes, okay, these big metal boxes, and they're great. It does a lot of storage for us, which actually consolidates some of the equipment that we were originally bringing out. Instead of having 3 boxes, big wooden boxes, now we only have that safe coming out. We do have a wooden box because of the pandemic. We kept those in use because that was all our supplies for the PPE stuff. But I think a prior administration didn't go out and check some of the polling locations because some of the locations we can't fit the safes in, which became it's an ongoing issue. There was also a choice made by the prior administration. You can do digital or what we call manual ballot, where you actually fill in the bubble. Many people think about when we do our voting machines, there's where you can go up and touch the screen, okay? That doesn't cast the ballot. That actually is a marker, and in layman's terms, it's a big pencil, big electronic pencil to fill in your ballot. So once you get it out of the digital or you fill in your own bubble, then you go over to it's called the DS200, it's the counting thing. You slide it in, it takes your ballot right there. That's probably one of the most important pieces of equipment we have. Long lines, you're correct. Maybe not necessarily we had long lines in Oakwood. I think Oakwood was one of the locations, one of the cities that had the highest turnout in early voting combined with absentee ballots. And that's wonderful. That's people using the different resources that we've been able to give them. We'll probably combine precincts or polling locations here in Oakwood. We wouldn't necessarily expand the number of polling locations, but we do have a limited number of equipment. And so as I came from this evening, I came from Washington Township. Just because of the sheer growth in Washington Township, we added 5 precincts.
Right.
And
Well,
that's
I would-
going to add polling locations. And that's the
I
difficult
totally understand that in Washington. That's kind of my point, is that we're kind of landlocked and we're not really, I mean, we grew
But
by-
you are growing.
Uh,
That's the funny thing is you would have seen, and not to get long, but
No, I get it. It's 400 people, but there's children involved. I totally understand what you're saying. I was just curious about the funding, because that's the number one thing I would look at, is why are we adding more expense to this when I'm sure that's an
Yeah.
issue. The county's funding is not good. We know that. That's why I was curious, that's all.
well, and I will say is this past year, I've not increased our budget. We've got what we've got. We're going to make it work. This crew that I work with, this team, this family, you want to talk about a bunch of people that, although we're evenly divided amongst the 2 major political parties, and in the downtime, if we do have a downtime, sometimes they get in a little squabbles, which is fine. But I will tell you, once election time comes around, you couldn't have a finer crew that goes out and gets this job done. You would, if you met them, and I think many of you know them, I wasn't there in I did run a polling location in 2020 on an emergency status. I wasn't going to work, and then I got called 4 days before the election. But what our team did, and I'll say this, not just Montgomery County, although we're, I'll be biased and say we're the best in the state. I think a lot of people look towards Montgomery County of how we operated. But the state of Ohio in 2020, during the middle of a pandemic, put one hell of a election on. And people voted, and we did a great job. And so you got to be proud of your constituents who helped out, who, voted. It was something that was spectacular for us, so you guys should be proud of that. But that's
Thank
a
you.
long answer to
No,
that.
it's fine.
We're
Thank
doing
you.
everything we can.
No, I appreciate it.
Other questions for Jeff? Are you are you predicting that the primary will be moved back from May to June? Or,
Here's what I could say to you. My contacts up at the State House have, this is prior to this evening's notice, have said they would never move, they were not going to move the May election. My suggestion was quite simple, that I thought it would be easy and would work well if we moved the entire thing to the August. We're trying to get rid of August elections because it's just an expense that's not necessary. They wanted to, there was rumors that they were going to split it to have the counties, countywide, statewide in May, and do the congressional in August. And there's a technical reason about that. The congressional map was also ruled unconstitutional, but on that, they have different deadlines. So the Supreme Court has to follow a certain deadline. So on the congressional, the state map, they can tell you, give us a new map in 3 days or whatever. And in the congressional map, you have to have 30 days. And then post that first 30 days, if there's objections, there's another 30 days. So it's 60 days from March 4th, which does not comply with it. We have to start an election. Most people think our election is May 3rd, and that's election day. But of course, we got early voting. But more importantly for us, day 46 is an extremely important day, coming backwards from the election day of May 3rd. Day 46 is very important because that's when we have to have our ballots going out to our overseas military personnel and have them have that opportunity to vote. So our ballots got to be done like the week before. So you're talking the middle of March. And in that sequence, the congressional map won't even be drawn by that, let alone now the state maps. But
sounds like our Supreme Court justices ought to be working polls whatever day they choose to make the election. But,
Mayor, you must be listening in on me because I've challenged that. I think all elected officials, if it's not your year of election, I need you at my polls because I think it would be a different, they would have a different frame of mind. When anybody runs for the Secretary of State and they want my opinion, I ask one question only. Have you ever been a poll worker or ran a poll? If the answer is no, well, you know where my thinking is. I think it's really important that they understand that. That's half of their job. As well as the rest of those, I've been a candidate. I understand that part of it. I'm also now on the inside of the election side, and it is something that it's unbelievable what happens. So,
well, thank you for coming and enlightening us.
Thank you.
It was an enlightening report, and for those that are at home, I hope they all listen to this and go vote.
yes, thank you for your time, and if you have any additional questions, please contact my office.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other visitors that wish to address council this evening? If so, this would be your time to come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And I see 3 young people there. Are you just trying to get some extra credit, or you want to come talk to us? Okay. Welcome. Again, if you could state your name and address for the record.
I will. Good evening, Mayor Duncan and Oakwood Council members. I am Tim Benford, 132 Greenmount Boulevard, and on behalf of the 512 members of Drive Electric Dayton, a chapter of the Electric Vehicle Association, I want to thank the City of Oakwood for installing a 2-port Level 2 EV charging station in the Oakwood Farmers Market parking lot this spring, a benefit for which all current and future EV owners are very grateful. Additionally, we have recently learned that because of the large number of Tesla owners in Oakwood and the surrounding area, Tesla is building a service center on West Dorothy Lane with a bank of DC fast superchargers operational from March this year, amazingly. Also, Dayton's sustainability manager announced recently that several new level 2 chargers are being installed downtown locations, adding to the already significant list. Further, we learned on Friday from the planning and engineering manager of the Department of Aviation in the city of Dayton that level 1 EV charging points have been installed on every pillar in the Vandalia Airport multi-story parking lot, and funding has been requested for level 2 chargers in the exterior airport parking lot. This is all good news for the Miami Valley, and we are proud that our forward-thinking city of Oakwood has implemented many environmentally friendly measures over the last 30 years. Electric vehicles play a significant role in reducing ozone alert days locally, and blunting transportation sector's contribution to global warming risks. So on behalf of Drive Electric Dayton, we look forward to working with the City of Oakwood on EV-related infrastructure projects as these clean vehicles rapidly become commonplace. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thanks.
Does anyone else wish to address the city at this time? All right, we will then close the visitor portion and go to legislation. Vice Mayor Byington has an ordinance.
Yes, Your Honor. This is an ordinance to repeal the Oakwood Property Maintenance Code in its entirety, which was based upon the 2003 International Property Maintenance Code, and then to adopt a new Oakwood Property Maintenance Code based on the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code. This is the first reading of an ordinance to update our property maintenance code. For many years, our local property maintenance code has been based upon a model code known as the 2003 International Property Maintenance Code, IPMC, with a number of adjustments to tailor that model code to Oakwood's needs. Staff has been working on a code updated to transition Oakwood to the latest 2021 version of the IPMC. The new code is intended to streamline the administration of our property maintenance code, but not to make any major substantive changes. Among these administrative changes, we are aligning our property maintenance districts with Oakwood's voting precincts. We currently have 15 citizens serving on the Property Maintenance Board, 3 from each of the 5 districts. With the updated code, we will have 24 citizens serving on the board, 3 from each of the 8 precincts. We just talked about that here earlier. This is, as I mentioned before, this is a first reading of this particular ordinance, and I make no motion at this time.
All right, with that, we'll let you have another ordinance to introduce.
Sure. This is an ordinance to amend Section 1 of the 2022 Original Appropriation Ordinance number 4947, which is to provide for the appropriation of an additional amount of $150,000 to be expended from the Capital Improvement Fund for engineering costs related to the Far Hills Storm Sewer Reconstruction Project. This is a supplemental appropriation ordinance in connection with stormwater sewage upgrades. The February and March Oakwood City newsletter included an article about this large storm sewer improvement project planned for construction in 2023. We call it the Far Hills Storm Sewer Reconstruction. The stormwater infrastructure improvement project will take place on Far Hill Avenue at Greenmont Boulevard, on Delwood Avenue between Far Hills Avenue and East Shantz Avenue, on Ford Boulevard between Far Hills Avenue and East Shantz Avenue, and along a section of Devereaux Drive north of Ford Road. Now, the city conducted an analysis of the existing storm sewer system in this area and found several sections of the system reaching the end of its useful life. Engineering design work for the project will take place this year in preparation for the 2023 construction. Staff informed our Citizen Budget Review Committee about this large project at a meeting conducted this last fall. The city will use capital improvement fund dollars for the engineering design work and Federal American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funds, for the 2023 construction expenses, supplemented by an additional state or federal grant money that may possibly be available next year. The supplemental appropriation will authorize an additional amount of $150,000 to be expended from the Capital Improvement Fund for engineering services related to this capital improvement project. I move that council waive the second reading and adopt this ordinance this evening.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any questions for Vice Mayor Byington? Hearing none, Lori, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan?
Yes?
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton?
Yes.
Mrs. Turbin?
Yes.
Thank you, and now I believe Vice Mayor Byington has a resolution.
Yes, this is a resolution to amend the number of citizen members to be appointed to the Budget Review Committee from each of the city's voting precincts. Oakwood is fortunate to have 35 volunteers currently serving on the Citizens Budget Review Committee. These citizens provide valuable advice and feedback to the members of City Council and city staff on a regular basis on the use of our public resources. Membership on the BRC is linked to Oakwood's voting precincts, with 5 members being appointed from each of the 7 precincts. Recently, we learned that Montgomery County Board of Elections has expanded Oakwood's electoral map from 7 to 8 voting precincts, and we wish to address how the change will impact the BRC membership. If we continue to appoint 5 members from each precinct, the new math will increase the overall BRC from 35 members to 40. However, if we appoint just 4 members from each precinct, the new committee size would go from 35 members to 32. Council feels that a committee starts to become too large when it crosses that threshold of 40-plus members, and that a committee size of 32 members would work well for the purpose of the BRC. This resolution would authorize council to appoint 4 BRC members from each of Oakwood's 8 official voting precincts. And I move that council adopt this resolution this evening.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions for Vice Mayor Byington? We will have some vacancies here, and we will be appointing those people here in the next 30 to 60 days and bring it back to council for approval. Lori, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton?
Yes.
Mrs. Turbin?
Yes.
And finally, Vice Mayor Byington has one more ordinance.
Yes, this is an ordinance to provide by mutual agreement for the adjustment of the boundary lines between the city of Oakwood and Kettering, Ohio. This is the first reading of an ordinance to adjust Oakwood's shared corporate boundary line with the city of Kettering. Although minor, the importance of these changes came to light when Kettering began its project to upgrade the Ridgeway Road Bridge. The existing corporate boundary follows an irregular path in the vicinity of the bridge. The boundary veers out into West Dorothy Lane on both sides of Ridgeway Road, placing parts of West Dorothy Lane and the bridge in both cities. It also follows an odd L-shaped path at Fairmont Avenue, placing parts of that street in both cities. This adjustment, which we are doing by mutual agreement with the City of Kettering, will address these irregularities by aligning the boundary with the northern edge of West Dorothy Lane, except for a stub that is being created at Ridgeway Road. This is, in effect, a housekeeping measure to ensure that all of West Dorothy Lane and the entire bridge right-of-way, including its northern approach, are under the jurisdiction of the City of Kettering, and all of Fairmont Avenue will be under the jurisdiction of the City of Oakwood. The 2 cities are awaiting final engineering review from Montgomery County, and as soon as that is complete and we have a final exhibit confirmed for the ordinance, the matter will be back for its second reading. So as I mentioned, this is the first reading of the ordinance, and I make no motion this evening.
Vice Mayor Byington, my understanding is there are no homes in Oakwood that are going to Kettering, or no homes in Kettering going to Oakwood.
That's correct.
Just raw ground.
Yes, it mainly has to do with the bridge alignment and the approaches for that
All right.
bridge on both sides.
All right, well, we will hope to get that engineering approved by the county, and we'll be back next month to pass this. All right, that concludes our legislation. We now have a staff report from Public Safety and Chief Alan Hill. Welcome again. And you got a tough act to follow from that swearing in, so we'll see how you do.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out if the Board of Elections meeting was scheduled before or after the Bengals made it to the Super Bowl, because an 8 to 1 o'clock switch time it would make us. So, good evening, Mayor, Council. Here to give you my update, and I'm primarily going to talk a lot about crime stats, numbers, EMS trends, fire trends tonight. A lot of times, as I do here in my first address to council, throughout the year, because I think it's important. I think it's important to share this information with council and also share it with everybody who's listening, watching, or will watch out in the community, because I think Oakwood continues to be the safest community in the region, if not the state. And I think these numbers illustrate and support that. Can you assist, please? The first thing I'm going to talk about is Part 1 and major crime comparisons from 2020 to 2021. We're back under 100 Part 1 crimes for a year for 85, and I always use around 100 as a benchmark. I think anytime you have a community as densely as populated as ours, even though we talk about the 9,500 residents, we're also talking about 2.2 square miles and 3,800 approximately dwellings within that 2.2 square miles. And when you're dealing with 85 total Part 1 crimes, it is a decrease from last year when we had 110. We saw a spike last year, and we'll see when I do an 11-year chart here. One of the reasons why is, in 2020 we were dealing with a lot of political sign thefts. That every single time one of those was reported, it actually does count against our crime statistics for the year. Here's an 11-year chart going all the way back to 2011. In early 2010, 11, 12, 13-ish, you can see we were up over the 100 per year. When we get into our burglary chart here in a couple of slides, that's when we had an extensive number of residential break-ins that were impacting these numbers. And then as we got through the mid-teens, we can see the numbers dropping, under 100. We've been very consistent since 2015 with regards to being under 100 total Part 1 crimes for the year, with 110 being in 2020. And like I said, that was a direct result of theft of political signs. Here's the same 11-year burglary chart. Last year, we were back down to 3,800 residences, and we're talking about 2 burglaries for the year. I think that's an unbelievable number for a community like ours. And when you look over the last 5 total years, obviously 2019 is a banner year when we had 0. But when you look at the trend from 2011 to 2016, where the average was up around 13, 14, and we had unfortunately, we had a large year in 2011, and that was all a direct result of one individual, in the last several years. I think we've been very fortunate as a community. I've mentioned this before. In a community our size, with the amount of Part 1 crimes that we see, all it truly takes is one person on a crime spree, whether that's over a period of a night, a weekend, a week, or a month, and whether they're caught or not caught, could have a dramatic impact on 1, our overall crime statistics and our numbers, and 2, our solvability rate. If one person's responsible for 20 crimes in a year and we catch them, our crime statistics, our solvability rate looks great. If we don't catch them, it doesn't look so good. So and I've noticed that since 2007, since I've been here, really the impact that 1 or 2 people over the course of a year can have on our crime statistics.
Am I allowed to ask a question? Sorry. Is a burglary different from, does a burglary mean at night or something like that?
It's an occupied structure or a structure that's likely to be occupied.
Okay, so
it's a residential structure where
Okay.
you hear like a breaking and entering. Breaking and entering would be like for a detached garage
Okay,
for the purpose to commit a theft offense, where it is a burglary is to a residential structure where it's occupied or likely to be occupied. And a residential house, unless it's completely vacant, with a for sale sign in the front yard, is always likely to be occupied.
okay, got it, thank you.
Yep. Theft reports. We did experience an 11% decrease in reported theft or reported larceny offenses in comparison to 2020. The big difference in the 2 years is the type of thefts. We had a large number, about a third in 2020 of those 91 was, as I mentioned, were theft of political signs. And then in 2021, we went back to experiencing theft from unlocked vehicles. We experienced far more in 2021 than we did in 2020, and they make up a large portion of our overall larceny offenses. Auto thefts. And last year when I was standing at this podium, I was talking about 13 auto thefts of vehicles for us over a course of a year, which is a huge number in 2020. Last year, in 2021, we were back down to what we normally see, which is 1 to 2 a year. As I mentioned, 13 reported auto thefts in 2020. I just want to remind everyone, every single one of those was from an unlocked vehicle with the keys inside it. I appreciate the fact that everybody feels safe in this community where you can leave your car unlocked and your keys on the dash, but every now and again we do have people, crime of opportunists, they're walking down the street, they're tired of walking, and they find a vehicle to take, so please remove your keys from the vehicle and lock the door. It's the best theft prevention you can provide for yourself. And then, in 2020, we were back to what we normally see as 1 to 2 auto thefts over the course of the year. Last year was really an anomaly, or 2 years ago, I should say, in 2021 was really an anomaly with seeing that many vehicle thefts. That could be up to a decade for us, what we experienced in 1 year in 2020. Traffic statistics. Just a couple of numbers to talk about. First, overall citations. We were just shy of 2,000 last year. Coming out of the pandemic, we were up about 25% in comparison to where we were in 2020. As you can see, the 3-year average of 2017 to 2019 is up over 2,500. I expect as we come out of this pandemic, although we've returned a long time ago to normal operations, I anticipate our traffic enforcement activity continue to increase, as I said, as we move away from this pandemic. But the number, when you look at that kind of sticks out on this chart, is 151 crashes in 2021 in comparison to 98 in 2020. And this is a direct result of a 75% increase in reported hit-and-run accidents from 2020 to 2021. During the same year, over a 3-year period, I should say, from 2018 to 2020, we only averaged about 32 hit-and-run reported crashes a year, and last year in 2021, we had 56 incidents, so almost double incidents, and that had a direct impact on our overall accidents. Obviously, in 2017, it's the highest of any in 5 years with 182. We've had a significant reduction in the next 3 years after that, and we're back up. But when you see in the injury column, although we had 151 accidents, we only had 9, which is our lowest, 9 crashes involving injuries. It's our lowest over a 5-year period. And what kind of hit-and-run crashes are we experiencing? Many of them are on the east side of the community, on the narrow streets where somebody's driving by and they take off a rear view mirror. Sometimes, or a side view mirror, I guess I should say, a side mirror. Sometimes the driver's aware of it, but many times they're not. They think they hear something. They don't know if they pop their tire on a curb or they hit the curb, and they keep driving. The person gets up the next morning, they walk out to their vehicle, and their driver's side mirror is laying on the ground. They pick up the phone, they call us, and that's a reported hit-and-run crash. We experience very, very few hit-and-run crashes out on our public roadways where somebody's involved in an accident and they take off. Do we get those occasional accidents on Schroyer Road where probably a drunk driver goes left to center, pops up on the median, takes out a row of trees, and then tries to make it home? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, depending on the damage. But we get those kinds of hit-and-run crashes. But the large majority of these 56 that we experienced last year were very, very minor property damage only crashes that involved a lot of side swiping and some very minor damage. EMS runs. 418 for 2021. The big difference between 2020 and 2021 is, during the pandemic year, for a lot on the EMS side, for a lot of just total number of runs were down. Even though everybody was home, not everybody was out. A lot less sick people, although we were dealing with the pandemic. At that time, but the significant illnesses that we normally see, we weren't experiencing, and it allowed everybody to stay home and handle their own mech runs. So in 2020, we only responded and provided mutual aid 12 times, once a month. That's not a lot for us, and last year we were back up to 50, which means we were called to and we responded to Dayton or Kettering, which are the 2 agencies that account for all of these. On 50 occasions, we were called either by Dayton and Kettering to respond to their community to handle a mutual aid run because all their medics were tied up. On the flip side of that, for us, how many times over the last 5-year period have we called for another agency to come into Oakwood to handle a medic run for us? And the answer is 0. For the last 5 years, we have been able to handle every single one of our medic runs with our on-duty personnel, and that's a testament because a lot of times we're on a medic run. When we talk about us having a second medic and the value and the importance of that, it's that piece of equipment that allows us to do it, because although our crew personnel is out on the street, we have Detective Bollinger, paramedic, now Captain Tanner, paramedic, Lieutenant Benson, paramedic, Captain Brzezinski, paramedic, and we will supplement the crew personnel with in-house staff to make sure we handle that second medic run. So like I said, I think this is a pretty important number to point out to our citizens. When you pick up the phone on a medical emergency over the last 5 years, you're calling 911, it's us that are responding and handling that call. Fire runs, we're just shy of 100 in 2021 for 98, and we had 1 fire-related incident that had very minor damage, very minor fire in comparison to the previous year. With the fire on Volusia, that was extensive damage where we had 2 significant fires in a year. Last year, just under 98, very consistent, and 1 with very, very minor damage. Our response times continue to be some of the best in the nation. For an average fire response, we're putting an engine on the scene in less than 5 minutes, and the first cruiser's on the scene in about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. It's pretty impressive, because when our guys get on the scene, especially if it's a small grease fire or something in the kitchen, they have fire extinguishers in their cruiser, and they can immediately go to work. I'm very, very pleased where our response times and our numbers are. Personnel changes. A couple months ago, it's been a couple months now, time flies. I think it was the December council meeting where we actually swore in 2 brand new public safety officers. Both Ross Green and Matt Staley came to us as triple certified. They were certified in all 3 disciplines. Ross came to us from the Middletown Fire Department as a firefighter paramedic, and Matt Staley came to us from the Xenia Fire Department as a full-time, where he worked as a full-time firefighter paramedic, but Matt also worked as a full-time Xenia police officer as well. Tremendous amount of experience that we've been able to add to our department here in the last couple of months. In-service training program. We continue to provide a robust in-service training program covering all 3 disciplines. Over the 5-year period of 2017 to 2021, we're averaging about 3,500 hours of in-service training across the department. When you compare that to an average 40-hour work week, equates to 2,080 hours a year. We're about 1 3/4 full-time, positions of hours that we're training across the board. So it is a significant number of hours. We provide training by various platforms. We subscribe to online EMS continuing education programs, classroom practical training exercises. We'll bring people in, outside instructors, our own instructors, and conduct traditional classroom settings. And we're involved in active practical simulation type exercises as well. That is on all 3 disciplines, fire, police, and EMS. And here's the breakdown of the hours. Law enforcement, just due to all the mandated training with law enforcement across the board, is the vast majority of those hours, but we also are training significantly on fire and EMS as well. One police training that I want to note for 2022, last year we focused a lot on mental health. We did a lot of suicide awareness prevention. Everybody went through a mental health first aid class. We're sending all the supervisors plus officers to the 40-hour critical incident or stress management training. This year, we're going to focus, and we're partnering with all of the other MVCC communities. So in TCSU, the 8 cities are partnering together, and we submitted an application to Georgetown Law Innovative Policing Program. This is actually ran by the Georgetown University Law Program in Washington, D.C. And the title of the program is called Active Bystandership for Law Enforcement. And what the ABLE project is, it's designed to prepare officers to successfully intervene, to prevent harm to others, and to create a law enforcement culture that supports peer intervention. Officers are frequently faced with high stress, high stakes, fast evolving situations where they have to make rapid decisions. ABLE teaches it is the responsibility of every officer, not just the supervisors on the scene, of every officer to act to prevent mistakes, prevent misconduct, and promote their own fellow officers' health and well-being. We're looking very much forward to this program. The plan is to complete department-wide training in 2022. We've identified and we will send a couple people to the train the trainer instructor programs, and then those 2 officers, actually 1 lieutenant and 1 officer, will then come back and train the rest of the department. The delay in us putting this training on here in the first quarter is we as fellow chiefs, me and my 7 contemporaries from the other MVCC agencies, Georgetown, because of the pandemic, is only offering virtual instructor training classes. We think this kind of training is person-to-person, face-to-face. So we want to wait until their instructor trainers are able to travel again, and all the representatives from our agencies can sit down with them individually and meet with them face to face. We think that will be the most impactful for both the instructor trainers and for all the officers that are receiving the training. On November 10th, it's hard to believe, we graduated our 4th Citizens Police Academy. There's the group right there. You know, one thing about this group that was different from the previous groups is I know you guys recognize a lot of faces up there, is the amount of experience and longevity, when I should say experience with, active involvement with the community. You know, we've had that in every single one of our academies, but there's a lot of people. I mean, how long has Howard Booz been on the Budget Review Committee? I mean, there's a lot of people that participate in this academy that has had a tremendous amount of experience. Tommy Routsong has lived in this community for 60 plus years. And to have some long generational residents attend, it made it a lot of fun, and I know Chuck Balaj enjoyed this group very much. So a little shameless plug for our 2022 Citizens Police Academy. Will begin accepting applications in June. It's free of charge. We appreciate the community support of this program. Of this program, and it's a tremendous way for us as public safety department to interact and to hear the community's wants, needs, and address any concerns that they have. Every single officer that participates in this academy is completely volunteer by them. We don't force. We have more instructors than we have hours to fill, because we could make this a 20-week class if we wanted to. So that's a testament to the guys and gals within the department that are willing to step up and be involved in a community program like this. The last thing I want to hit on is the Ohio Collaborative. This was established in 2014. It continues to grow with regards to industry standards. It oversees implementation or recommendations for statewide policing standards in a variety of areas. They're now up to 10 areas, and within those 10 areas, there's multiple standards for different things. Use of force, recruitment and retention, pursuit policy, internal investigations, body-worn cameras. So there's various standards, and we continue to remain in compliance. Although it is voluntary, there is an independent review of police agencies to demonstrate transparency, our modern methods and standards, and open critique and feedback from assessors. So if somebody comes in and sees something in one of our policies and procedures from the state and they don't necessarily like what they're seeing, or they want to point out other agencies are shifting to this, you know, it's a great opportunity for us to receive feedback. And we most recently, in January of 2022, complied with the latest standards of community engagement, body-worn cameras, and telecommunicator training, dispatch training. One of the areas that we're focused on right now that Captain Brzezinski and I are submitting for the standards is officer wellness. You know, for us, it's pretty timely that the state implemented a standard on officer wellness, and for us as an organization with what we've experienced in the fall, you know, it is pretty timely for us. So, you know, we're in the process of collecting all of the data that we need to submit for that standard. But when you're talking the mental health training, the suicide awareness training, the crisis intervention training, and some of the things we've done, plus bring in licensed clinicians, we have all the requirements already met. We just have to submit the documentation. And with that, does anybody have any questions?
I do. Chief Hill, thank you for everything you're doing. And I know you have so many things going on. You didn't have time to talk about the good stuff you do in the schools. And I know you do some training there, especially the older kids. And I'm wondering, I'm working on a little project with a buddy, and are there any things in place to alert the kids about human trafficking signs?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know if it's discussed like within health programs, but I'm not aware of any active ongoing training that's specifically focused with the older high school students on human trafficking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great job.
incredible stat about 13 cars being stolen, and every one of them has a key to the car. I mean, come on, people.
Right.
Yeah, so no questions, but comments is, keep it up. Your department is wonderful, and they do a great job, and the only thing I ask as your local insurance agent is let's cut down on those traffic accidents, all right? We can't have any more of those, all right? The number is starting to bother me. Now, actually, what I noticed was, you talked about comparison from last year to 2020. Well, I'd rather look at 2019 to 2021, and they were very similar. In 2021, we're still not out of what I'll call the 2020.
Correct.
So I think the numbers look really good, and I know you guys work really hard. I see it every day, and just keep up the good work.
I'm not advocating for it, but one of the things I think about in my mind is, especially with the Schroyer Road study and some of the things that we went through in 2018, is the vehicle traffic. The average number of cars, the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, and they said, in 2014, it was 15,000 cars per day on Far Hills and X number of cars per Schroyer. I just wonder, with the amount of people working at home in the South communities that no longer drive up and down Far Hills, if over time, if they don't return to the office, will that have our transient population that we see every single day, the 30,000 cars that commute to and from every single day, will that have a long-term impact? If you have less cars, the roadways last longer, things like that, because there's not as much vehicle traffic, and I think about that. And if we don't have the volume of cars, will that ultimately impact some of our statistics that we keep track of annually? Yeah.
It will be interesting. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
report.
Thanks.
All
Thank you,
right.
Chief Phil.
And now I want to ask Councilmember Turbin to introduce our Oakwood moment.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, for our Oakwood moment tonight, we wanted to recognize a successful styrofoam recycling event courtesy of the city and Green Oakwood. And here we have Cheryl Lloyd, who's going to tell us about it. And as she's walking up to the podium, let me tell you a little bit about Cheryl. She and her husband, Andy, moved to Oakwood in 2016. And because her major was in environmental science, it was just natural that she would migrate to Green Oakwood, and that she did. And since that time, she has been an active administrator. So tell us about the styrofoam recycling.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I would say residents of Oakwood, but we're on small numbers. Today's Oakwood moment is also a Green Oakwood moment. But first, let's look at the side. We've got cars and pickups full, bursting to the seams of styrofoam there. Could be white suspicious packages, but no, it's not one of Chief Hill's speed busts here, but it is styrofoam. So on the cold morning of Saturday, the 8th of January, Full Public Works saw 52 out of a total of 54 Oakwood households drop off styrofoam. Green Oakwood volunteers drove them to the Montgomery County recycling site, and that was 19 more households recycled styrofoam this time than previously. And we hope that that will rise for the next event, which is the April the 23rd. But let's dial back a little bit. It's in the last 5 years of existence, Green Oakwood, a volunteer-run organisation, has gone from strength to strength in both environmental and education and in sustainability initiatives. It's proud to support and be supported by Oakwood City Council. And in the last 3 years, nearly 24 Green Oakwood resident recyclers have been working with flexible and team-orientated city staffs to significantly increase recycling and reduce landfill. So in January, given Oakwood has only 1.5% of Montgomery County households and population, it was seen as hitting above its weight in both county styrofoam event and also in the Five Rivers Metro Parks Holiday Lights recycling fundraiser. Additionally, a new Green Oakwood biodiversity group is excited to be partnering with Wright Memorial Library in supporting biodiversity awareness and data capture, and is currently planning plant appreciation garden tours in the spring and summer. Furthermore, its highly regarded clean energy experts hope to help the city mitigate cost and infrastructure issues impacted by supply chain and climate. So in short, from one of its earliest inhabitants, John Patterson and the Wright brothers, Oakwood residents and its city employees have a long history of visionary thinking, proactivity, and teamwork. And in bettering the lives of those who live, work, and play in Oakwood and the surrounding areas, Green Oakwood is very proud to partner with the City Council.
Well, thank you for that Oakwood moment. That was very nice.
Thank you.
Any questions for?
Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl.
Cheryl, will these be, one quick question, will these be, are you planning on having these quarterly?
They are, yeah. It's dictated by the Montgomery County Council, and at the moment it's working out quarterly.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I hear there may be other initiatives in the pipeline, but we don't know anything.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Just for council's edification, the mayors and managers appointed me to serve on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee for the county, and our first meeting is Wednesday. So I have no idea what I got myself into, but I'm looking forward to learning about solid waste in Oakwood, or not Oakwood, Montgomery County. Yeah, I'm sure I will. Okay. It's now time for our city manager report. Okay, great.
Good evening. My first comments are going to be right in line with what Cheryl just spoke about, diving a little bit deeper. And I thought about going into a lot of detail about the various sustainability measures that we've undertaken here in the city, and to do so tonight. But given the late hour, I'm going to give you an abbreviated introduction to it, you and the community. And what I'd like to do is come back probably at the May meeting and do a more detailed presentation using a PowerPoint and really go into some detail on all the different measures that we've taken. But hard to believe that it's been over 2 months since we opened the new recycling facility, where we did all the string water recycling and styrofoam as well. So I'll start with that and just say that the facility is functioning exactly as designed, and it's used very heavily. I've thought about putting a hose counter out there to actually count the number of cars, and we may do that at some point, but I can just tell you anecdotally that we have many, many citizens that visit that facility every single day, 7 days a week. But as I reflected on that large project, I began to think, we ought to put down on paper the various, again, sustainability measures or measures that deal with environmental issues in one form or another. Document that, things that we've done. And I've been here now in my 30th year, and have a memory of a lot of different things that we did. So on our website, we will post what is about a 7-page paper that talks about the various things. And I'll just highlight very briefly tonight. Of course, with the recycling, which we started over 30 years ago, the commingled stuff that initially, as I mentioned at the ribbon cutting for the recycling facility, that voluntary program had 60% of our community participating during the first few months when it was just rolled out. And a survey we just completed a couple of months ago showed that 92% of our citizens participate in that. The cardboard recycling is very significant. In fact, if you look back 10 years, and there'll be a chart on what's posted to our web site, our volumes have nearly doubled from about 70 tons a year to about 130, so a lot going on there. We continue the yard waste pickup and take all that material to a designated green waste drop-off facility at the county. The leaf collection and processing into leaf mulch is a major project for our city, and as I know you've all seen in the fall, the amount of leaves we pick up is really amazing. Stormwater management is a big deal. You'll remember a few years ago we had a representative here from a UD group and a Little Miami watershed that helped put all the placards on the catch basins or the stormwater inlets. We've had a stormwater utility since 2013, and that's operating in compliance with the EPA and what's called the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES. In 2008, when we built the parking lot where the farmers market operates, we created some additional hard surface area from what was there before with the 4-unit apartment. While all the additional runoff from that we put into a rain garden system, so none of that goes directly to the storm sewer. As many of our citizens know, we have had for 30 or 40 years now a stormwater drainage ordinance which requires property owners to mitigate additional runoff created by household projects beyond a certain size limit. The Rotary Club does their quarterly hazardous waste collection program. In 2017, we put the prescription drug drop-off box out here, and the chief reports that that is used on a regular basis. For over 20 years, Carol Collins and Brian Caldwell have managed our lawn maintenance of the public areas in compliance with what's called the integrated pest management systems. We have the doggy pot stations that were put in 2008, wellfield protection program, which I'll explain in detail the next time I'm here. We've embraced solar power for residential properties, and I know Tim has a system on his property. And Ethan Kroger, our code enforcement officer, has counted about 25 residential installations to date in Oakwood, and we have a very user-friendly permitting system for approving those. We deal with honeysuckle in all the public areas where we can as an invasive plant. Tree planting in Oakwood has been a big deal really since Carol Collins arrived here in the mid-'70s. Planted over 3,200 trees via our annual Johnny Appleseed street tree planting project. In 2014-15, we planted 164 new trees in the Far Hills Avenue Business District, replacing a lot of old, worn-out ash trees. In 2017, the chief mentioned earlier the Shore Road project. We built 16 raised medians in the center there, which, by the way, when you calculate all the area of those, we reduced the hard surface area of Shore Road by about 5%, which is not a huge number, but it's 5% less paved area, and we were able to plant 56 new trees. We built the bike paths along Shore, which is an excellent connector to the Dayton-Kettering path. I'll leave it at that. There's several more things on the list, but again, I'd like to come back in May probably and do a more detailed presentation on that. The second thing I want to mention is our budget book, which is now on our website, and anyone wishing to learn all the gory details of Oakwood city finances, they'll find them in this book, the details. And a simple search on our website, you'll be able to pull this up, and it includes, again, all the appropriations for the 2022 calendar year for us. And finally, I just want to comment on my dear friend Mike Kelly, who you all know passed away on January 10th. Mike, as I stated in the press release that was reported in the Oakwood Register, was an amazing man. He arrived here in 1968, and he was hired as the assistant to the city manager directly out of grad school, University of Michigan. And 3 short years later, Dave Fell, the manager at the time, had developed such confidence in Mike that when we had an opening in the public safety director position, he offered that job to Mike. And I think it took some convincing for Mike to accept it, because Mike had no police background, he had no fire background or EMT background. And yet he had the skill set and the leadership skills and everything it took to take on that, a very important position here. And he held that from 71 until 92, when he was promoted to city manager. And he served as our manager until March of 2002, when Mike retired. So Mike was 76 and really, truly left his mark on Oakwood. So I just wanted to publicly comment on that, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for our city manager? A tribute to Mike is the 3 previous mayors and myself were all in line at the same time at his viewing over at Routsong. And the fact that we got Tom Routsong to put a Michigan flag up was really pretty cool, because he's a big Ohio State fan. So, all right. Thank you for your report. It's now time for council comments. Councilmember Turbin.
Thank you, Mayor. We hope everyone was safe and warm during this last wintry blast. And to that end, we want to thank our Public Works Department for doing a great job cleaning our streets and sidewalks. And I was thinking about this and how lucky we are to be in Oakwood. And I have a real quick story. When my husband and I first moved here to Oakwood, we had one of the biggest snowfalls. And of course, our guys were out moving the snow. And our grandson came to visit that day. And as he walked up the walk, which was clear, he looked up at his grandfather and said, "Do you have heated sidewalks in Oakwood?" And so, yes, again, thank you to our Public Works Department, and yes, I do feel lucky to live here.
Councilmember Hilton.
No comments, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilmember Stevens.
Just a couple quick things, Mayor. First, I'd like to congratulate Mike Tanner on his promotion to captain. I've known Mike a long time, and he's all the public safety officers are wonderful, but I can pick out Mike as one of the hardest working, most dedicated officers that we have. He's on when he was on the street. I always saw him out. Giving tickets is not the best way to be an officer necessarily. What I'm saying is he was always working, and I noticed that in everything he does, and this is well deserved. So I'm very happy for him. Second, I know a lot of you saw this in the Oakwood Register, but 2016 Oakwood graduate Michael Hoyt is going to be representing the Oakwood Lumberjacks in the Super Bowl. Michael's, he spent 4 years at Brown after leaving Oakwood, and he's a wonderful young man. I had the privilege of coaching him on the defensive line, and we text every once in a while. I try not to bother him during the season. I know he's busy. He's just a great young man, and I'm really proud of his hard work. And I don't have confirmation on this officially, but I'd be hard-pressed to think he's not the first Oakwood graduate to play in a Super Bowl. So I wish Michael all the best in the game. I will be rooting for Michael, but I will finish off by saying, "Who Day."
Vice Mayor Byington.
I will just go Bengals.
Go Bengals, okay. And I have no comments. Our next meeting is going to be on Monday, March 7, 2022. We are adjourned.